Have you ever wondered how you can live with greater self-control and inner peace without giving in to momentary impulses? The ancient Stoics left us with wisdom that helps us manage our emotions, overcome challenges, and strive for balance. In this video, we'll break down practical principles that can transform your life, from mindful moderation to negative visualization. Ready to learn how these teachings can give you the inner freedom you're looking for? Then let us start with the first principle, key 1. Reflect on your desires and impulses. Have you ever wondered where your desires and impulses come from? We often give in to the emotion of the moment without considering whether those desires are actually benefiting us or leading us away from important goals. It is worth taking a moment to pause and reflect on your aspirations. This approach can make a big difference in your choices, helping you make more informed decisions and live with clarity and purpose. Stoics such as Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius believed that we need to understand and control our desires. This does not mean suppressing them, but only asking ourselves, does this desire bring me closer to the life I want or further away from it? By analyzing our desires, we can compare them to higher goals without letting our emotions get the upper hand. Epictetus said, "It is not the things themselves that bother people, but their ideas about things." The same goes for desires. It is not about the desires themselves, but how we interpret them and whether we let them control us. By thinking about your impulses, you can decide whether they are worth following. Reason and virtue must prevail over fleeting desires. Imagine facing a strong temptation that distracts you from something important. It may seem appealing now, but in the long run it takes you away from what is valuable. Before you act, ask yourself this question: will this desire bring something meaningful or just distract you from your real goals? By pausing and thinking about your desires, you can build character by keeping your focus on what is important. Key 2. Practice mindful moderation. We live in a society that constantly pushes us to want more pleasure, more success, more achievement. But what happens when this endless race consumes us? The Stoics taught that true well-being lies not in excess, but in conscious moderation, the ability to stop in time and say enough, balancing one's desires with reason. Moderation doesn't mean limitation, it is the path to a conscious life where you weigh what you really need and what you can skip. Marcus Aurelius said that excess is repugnant to nature. Moderation allows us to avoid situations where uncontrollable desires rule us and focus on things that have real value. Conscious moderation is actively reflecting on your actions and decisions every day. It is not just abstaining from excess, but recognizing why and how we consume, enjoy, or act. Imagine enjoying a delicious meal. Moderation doesn't call for giving up the pleasure, but it does call for recognizing when to stop so that the pleasure will benefit you rather than lead to overeating. This principle can be applied to other areas of life as well, whether it is time spent on social media, TV shows, or work. Questioning whether these activities distract us from the important things avoids situations where we give too much attention to the insignificant and lose focus on the essentials. This approach helps us regain control and live in alignment with personal values. Key 3. Practice negative visualization. Modern culture often pushes us to take an optimistic view of life, encouraging us to focus on the positive aspects and avoid thoughts of trouble. However, Stoic philosophy offers a different approach that can bring inner peace and build resilience. Negative visualization is the practice of consciously imagining possible negative scenarios and thinking about how we will respond to difficulties. This approach allows us to face any adversity with preparation and calmness. Negative visualization is not pessimism. Rather, it teaches us to accept reality in its entirety, including all possible unfavorable outcomes, and to prepare in advance to overcome them. The Stoics believed that being prepared for the unexpected makes us more resilient to external circumstances, because reality doesn't always meet our expectations. By imagining what could go wrong, we train our minds and reduce our anxiety about the unknown. That way, if something does go wrong, it won't come as a sudden blow. We'll be ready to accept it and act rationally. Why is this important? Often it is the unknown and what we cannot control that causes us anxiety. Fear of an unpredictable future leads to anxiety and stress, but negative visualization helps us realize many things are beyond our control, but we can control our reactions to them. When we mentally rehearse facing difficulties, it helps minimize anxious thoughts. We realize that even if the thing we feared happens, it won't be a disaster because we already know how we can adapt. How does it work in practice? Imagine you facing an important presentation at work or a meeting you've been preparing for a long time. Instead of focusing solely on success and the perfect outcome, practice negative visualization. Imagine that your technique might fail, that you might face uncomfortable questions for which you are unprepared. Having visualized the worst-case scenario, think about how you will behave, what answers you will prepare, what alternative plans you will propose. This way, you will prepare yourself in advance for the unexpected and do your best not to be confused. Benefits of this approach. When we are prepared for unexpected twists and turns, we feel confident and less vulnerable. Negative visualization builds our resilience to stress and makes us more flexible and tolerant of difficulties. The Stoics believed that by recognizing the possibility of failure, we prepare for it just as we would for success, which helps us maintain inner balance and calm. This approach allows you to evaluate your life without unnecessary illusions and look at situations objectively. The next time you find yourself facing an important event or difficulty, spend a few minutes on a negative visualization exercise. Ask yourself the questions: what is the worst that could happen? How will I cope if it happens? Answering these questions will strengthen your calmness and preparedness for any circumstance. Key 4. Develop self-discipline. Have you ever thought about how small daily habits can have a powerful impact on your life? In Stoic philosophy, self-discipline is considered the key to staying focused on the things that really matter, rather than giving in to temptations and distractions. Self-discipline helps you not only set long-term goals, but also consistently follow through to achieve them, building inner strength step by step. Epictetus said, "A man cannot be free unless he governs himself." This freedom is achieved through the habit of self-discipline, allowing for a better mastery of oneself and one's life. Self-discipline is not just the ability to set limits, but the ability to cultivate a system of small but consistent actions that guide toward a more balanced life. It is important to remember that discipline is not just about forcing yourself to do certain things, but also the art of sticking to the path you've set out on, despite the difficulties that arise or the desire for distraction. This approach helps keep our focus on long-term goals instead of following fleeting pleasures that offer instant rewards but can weaken our inner core. Developing self-discipline requires gradualism. Often we want to start with big changes, such as abruptly quitting bad habits or making drastic lifestyle changes. But Stoics advise starting small, developing sustainable habits, such as rising early, meditating, exercising, or studying regularly, strengthens our mind and body by training us to focus on meaningful goals. The secret is to implement habits that may seem insignificant at first, but over time will help strengthen our ability to self-control and concentration. For example, try reading 10 pages of a book every day. This action may seem insignificant, but after a while you'll notice that it has made a significant impact on your awareness, ability to concentrate, and level of self-education. Self-discipline also helps you keep a balance between current desires and important long-term goals. There will be times along the way when it will be easier to put off or abandon a task altogether, succumb to laziness or procrastination. But like muscles, self-discipline is strengthened through practicing and resisting these momentary urges. Every time you choose an action that brings you closer to your goal instead of following a momentary temptation, you strengthen your character and build a stronger foundation for the future. Remember that self-discipline doesn't always involve drastic restrictions or rigid control. The Stoics emphasized that it is primarily a habit of small but consistent actions that create a cumulative effect in the long run. Self-discipline is a path in which what matters is not the end result, but resilience to hardship and the ability to get back on track, even if there have been temporary setbacks. The next time you feel tempted to put off a goal or succumb to procrastination, remember that self-discipline is like a muscle, getting stronger with each conscious choice to pursue your goal. By maintaining self-discipline, you not only learn to deal with temptation, but you become the master of your life. Key 5. Focus on higher goals. In a world full of distractions and short-term goals, it is easy to lose sight of what is truly important. The Stoics believed that one should focus on higher goals, those that transcend personal needs and bring meaning to life. Higher goals have to do with virtue, personal growth, and the public good, benefiting not only you but those around you. Marcus Aurelius, one of the main philosophers of Stoicism, said, "Engage in few things, but do them well." This means that instead of getting caught up in trivial things, you should put your energy into things that foster deep moral and spiritual growth. For example, helping people, working on yourself for the good of society, or seeking wisdom instead of chasing pleasure. Imagine directing your energy toward goals that not only develop you, but also positively impact others. It might be contributing to the community, learning for the benefit of society, or pursuing self-development for a broader purpose. Understanding these higher purposes helps us not only become better people, but also benefit those around us. Key 6. Practice temporary abstinence. We live in a world where we are driven to instant gratification. Everything is available here and now. However, the Stoics believed that it was helpful to practice temporary abstinence to gain self-control and inner balance. This means consciously giving up habitual pleasures for a time in order to realize one's power and dependence on these things. Seneca wrote that only by giving up pleasures can one realize the power of one's desires and their influence. This exercise strengthens the will and teaches one not to give in to one's desires, but to control them. You can practice temporary abstinence in different areas of life, limit your time on social networks, give up sweets or coffee for a week. Over time, it helps you feel that you are capable of being happy and productive without depending on the usual pleasures that used to seem important. Key 7. Replace impulsiveness with internal dialogue. Many of us know what it is like to act on impulse, something you later regret. The Stoics believed that instead of giving into impulse, you should develop an inner dialogue, the ability to ask yourself questions before you act. Epictetus said, "First find out what your words mean and then speak." That is, before you say something or do something, stop for a moment and ask yourself what the consequences will be. Simple internal dialogue helps us avoid mistakes because it forces us to be conscious of our actions. Imagine you are arguing with someone and your first impulse is to respond with irritation. At that moment, an internal dialogue is triggered. You ask yourself questions: is my response worth future regret? Is it compatible with my principles? Such questions help you slow down and make a more informed decision. Key 8. Be inspired by the examples of the Stoics. Have you ever wondered how the great thinkers of the past handled challenges and emotions? Stoic philosophy suggests being inspired by the examples of philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. These men lived their principles, learned to govern themselves, and demonstrated virtues even in the most difficult situations. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most powerful men of his time, yet he strove to remain humble, virtuous, and just. He taught that regardless of power, one should maintain self-control and wisdom. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became a philosopher, showed that it is not circumstances that define us, but our choice of how to respond to them. Seneca, despite being surrounded by temptations and pressures, taught that true well-being does not depend on wealth or status, but on the ability to control one's desires and maintain inner balance. When faced with Seneca, despite being surrounded by temptations and pressures, taught that true well-being does not depend on wealth or status, but on the ability to control one's desires and maintain inner balance. When faced with difficulties, imagine what the Stoics would have done and try to apply their approaches to enrich your life. Key 9. Share self-control and inspire others. Self-control is a powerful tool that can transform not only your life, but also positively influence the people around you. When we practice self-control by managing our emotions and actions, we not only become more balanced, but we inspire others to make similar changes. The Stoics believed that disciplined behavior and self-control had a much more powerful effect on others than mere words or admonitions. Epictetus said, "A man is not free unless he owns himself." This idea, while deeply personal, also has a broader meaning, because the example of personal self-control can also motivate those around us. When we demonstrate calmness and self-control in difficult situations, our behavior invisibly becomes a lesson to others. People around us see that it is possible to remain calm even in difficult circumstances and often begin to reflect on their own reactions and habits. How do you influence your surroundings by example? The Stoics taught that the best way to change those around us is by example. We can't change people by force or demand, but we can inspire them by our behavior. Imagine that you work in a stressful environment where co-workers are often irritated and arguments erupt at the drop of a hat. If you remain calm, showing discipline and respect in your words and actions, it can reduce the overall level of tension. Your actions based on self-control will become an invisible support for those around you, contributing to a more peaceful atmosphere. Self-control as a means of strengthening bonds. Practicing self-control socially allows you to create healthier, more respectful relationships with those around you. When you demonstrate poise and respect for the opinions of others, even in conflict situations, it helps build a culture of mutual understanding and trust. People begin to see you as a role model, as each of us is intuitively drawn to those who are able to remain calm and act thoughtfully. As a result, your self-control not only strengthens you, but also improves relationships, trust, and mutual respect. How can self-control inspire and motivate? At times when others see you remain poised despite challenges or pressure, they may feel the desire to develop the same qualities. The inspiration they get from your example may encourage them to work on their own reactions and impulses. This impact is especially noticeable in situations where you hold back from an impulsive response or remain calm in a tense situation. Even a silent display of restraint and judgment can have a profound effect on those watching you. Imagine you are at a family gathering where conflict or tension often arises. Your choice to remain calm and not be provocative will create an atmosphere of respect and self-control around you. Perhaps not everyone will notice it right away, but over time your approach can change the general mood at meetings. Similarly, at work, if you show composure and calmness even in stressful situations, your colleagues may begin to emulate you and a healthier atmosphere will develop. Practicing self-control for the common good. When practiced collectively, self-control becomes a force that can transform relationships and help create a harmonious community. Whenever you act with mindfulness, even under external pressure, it contributes to the common good because those around you see that it is possible to resist emotion and make informed decisions. In return, they may want to follow your example, leading to a more balanced and aware environment where everyone contributes to positive change. Self-control is not an obsession, but an inspiration. It is important to remember that we should not impose our approach on others by telling them how they should behave. The Stoics believed that true influence comes through deeds, not words. Simply remaining an example by demonstrating self-control in every action can encourage others to reflect on their own reactions. When we accept self-control as part of our lives and encourage it in the environment, it creates a more aware, respectful, and healthy society. How can you be an example of self-control for others? The next time you face a difficult situation, think about how your self-control benefits not only you but also those around you. Share this quality with your behavior and it will become a powerful source of positive change for you and for others. Key 10. Find freedom in self-restraint. When we hear the word freedom, the ability to do anything without boundaries is imagined, but the Stoics saw freedom differently. They believed that true freedom lies not in following every desire, but in learning to control them. The more often we give in to our desires, the more we become their captives. Epictetus said, "Do you want to be free? Stop being a slave to your desires." The more we satisfy our impulses, the farther we stray from our goals. The Stoics suggest that self-restraint should be seen as a path to inner freedom. For example, if you decide to limit the time you spend on your phone or reduce your shopping, you'll eventually feel how freeing it is mentally. You begin to manage your time and attention more consciously. Self-restraint, according to the Stoics, allows you to focus on what is truly important and valuable and helps. Self-restraint, according to the Stoics, allows you to focus on what is truly important and valuable and helps you live in harmony with yourself. Key 11. Find peace of mind by accepting imperfection. Often the pursuit of perfection leads to stress, dissatisfaction, and self-doubt. We want to be perfect in everything we do and are afraid to make mistakes. But the Stoics remind us that no being is perfect. Seneca said, "It is inherent in man to err, but persistence in error is harmful." Mistakes are a natural part of our journey, and it is important to learn to accept them with wisdom rather than frustration. Self-control in this case is not the ability to never make mistakes, but the ability to accept mistakes, learn from them, and move forward with ease. Acceptance of imperfection also extends to others. We often judge those around us for their blunders, forgetting that each of us is learning. When you accept your imperfections, you become more tolerant of others. Self-control is also the ability to remain calm despite imperfections, your own and others, and to find a balance between striving to improve and accepting yourself as you are. Thanks for watching the video to the end. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. See you in the next video, and remember, keep developing your Stoic mindset.